Hello, our dear viewers, and welcome to a new edition of our program, Africa Today. Minister of International Cooperation, Dr. Rania Al-Mashat, is participating in the Italy-Africa Summit, which is taking place in Rome. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni opened the summit of the African leaders on Monday, aimed at promoting Italy's big development plan for the continent that her government hopes will stem migration flows and forge a new relationship between Europe and Africa. 24 African leaders, top European Union and United Nations officials and representatives from the international lending institutions were in Rome for the summit, the first major event of Italy's Group of Seven presidency. Italy, which for decades has been ground zero in Europe's migration debate, has been promoting its development plan as a way to create security and economic conditions that will create job opportunities in Africa and discourage its young people from making the migration and dangerous migration routes across the Mediterranean Sea. Meloni is Italy's first hard-right leader since the end of the World War II, has made curbing migration a priority of her government, but her first year in power saw a big jump in the numbers of people who arrived on Italy's shores, with some 160,000 migrants last year. To shed more light on the issue, we are very much delighted to be joined over the phone by Ambassador Medhat Miligy, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Ambassador.
Good afternoon to you.
Sir, on behalf of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Minister of International Cooperation, Dr. Rania Al-Mashat, is participating in the Italian-African Summit. Can you shed more light about the importance of Egypt's participation in this summit in Rome?
Well, first of all, we have to understand that Minister Mashat is not going only on behalf of the Ministry of Cooperation, but is going to represent the President, which means it's a higher level of participation from the side of Egypt. This visit will have actually two aspects, and is already having two aspects, as we have seen during the several meetings that she led. The first aspect is the multilateral aspect, representing Egypt as an African country and looking at the programs and at the plans that Italy is proposing for further cooperation with Egypt and other African countries. The second phase or the second part of the visit is more focused on bilateral relations between Egypt and Italy.
Yeah.
We will look a little bit into the first phase or first aspect of the visit. We will find that our minister focused on cooperation, especially in the field of energy, since Egypt has taken a pledge to transform to green energy supply for its industry and its products, and also helping other African countries in this field. As you have seen, we have hosted the COP in Egypt to further enhance this aspect of our energy.
Yes.
So the first aspect is going to be, as I said, further cooperation in the field of energy, ensuring its supplies and promoting development of African countries. And of course, this is in a certain plan of a win-win situation. Italy, as Prime Minister Meloni has said it even before being elected as Prime Minister, she was focused very much on the migration issue.
Yes.
And focused on the problem of the African need of further development and further creation of new industries and so on. So this, when it happens, it will reduce definitely the flows of migration to Europe. In addition to addressing the development gaps in Africa and putting it on a path that will enhance this green transformation and achieve, of course, the principle of the Paris Agreement on climate change. And, of course, it will help to reduce harmful emissions. So we need to coordinate this as one of the major players on the green energy in Africa with the Italian counterpart.
Yes. Mr. Ambassador, actually, one of the main purposes for hosting that summit is Italy's interest to curb the flow of the migrants to the European shores, because Italy has always, for decades, been the ground zero in Europe's migration debate. How do you see the progress made so far, and what more could be done on the ground in order to reach that?
I think one of the main thoughts discussed during this meeting that they had with the Italian Prime Minister is to look a little bit deeper into the what's so-called integrated plan for cooperation and development in Africa, in cooperation, of course, with Egypt and other active African countries on the continent, and focusing on a number of many main axes, such as energy, economic cooperation, infrastructure, food security, even vocational training, and all this to help with the migration issue. As you have said yourself in your report, Italy has been hit hard by the flows of immigrants who come to Italy as a door to Europe. And this actually is harming Italy. And Italy considers that the more cooperation with the African countries to establish new industries and new production in Africa, this helps to reduce the flow. The further there is a development in Africa, the less there is migration flows into Europe and Italy. So, and I think that this was maybe the most important topic the Italian had to discuss with either our Minister of Cooperation or other representatives of African countries.
Yes. Mr. Ambassador, also can you shed light about Egypt's role here in helping Italy and the other European countries in trying to solve the crisis or the problem of the migrants that are trying to stay there in Europe and to migrate to the European countries?
Well, we have to understand that this is a local problem and also an international problem.
Indeed.
That Egypt might be also affected by. As you know, we have been witnessing for a long time many cooperation and development plans in Egypt in order to sustain a certain economic level that will prevent Egyptians from trying to flee to Europe seeking for a better future. Not just that, and also in security terms, we have to secure our borders so that nobody can use our frontiers, especially the one on the Mediterranean, to use it as a safe haven for illegal immigrants who want to use them to travel. That's why most of the people who are trying are seeking neighboring countries, but we don't see any more from the Egyptian side that there are people who can use such boats in order to migrate. But I think as the Italians have focused on before, and as President Sisi, ever since he took power, he is focused on how to further develop the standard of living of the Egyptians, because this is the best way to prevent Egyptians from trying to flee the country. Of course, we are having economic problems, but it's definitely getting better by the time, and that situation is getting better for many Egyptians who were before seeking to leave the country and now are finding jobs in Egypt in order to have a better future in their own country.
Yes. Sir, as part of the G7 presidency this year, Italy is aiming to make the African development central theme to enhance its influence on the continent where the global powers like China, Russia, and India have been expanding their political sway. What's your take on that, Mr. Ambassador?
Well, Italy has always been more involved in the issues. Of course, there are new economic powers that are emerging. Egypt itself even is trying to diversify its own source of relations, economic relations. So that's why we are members in new fronts such as the BRICS and so on. And Italy understands that the world is changing and trying to cope up with it and try to benefit from those new things. We shouldn't take this as a rivalry as much as it is a cooperation and a comprehensive development between the countries. I mean, having good relations for Egypt, for instance, with the BRICS countries such as, and mainly such as China and India and South Africa and Russia and all those countries, does not mean that our relation with the other blocs, other economical blocs, is in difficulties. Actually, it's just we are diversifying our economic resources and means and tools. And I think Italy is also trying to have further cooperation with many African countries in this regard, as we see in the summit, in order to have more diversified relations with African countries, and not just to focus on Europe and the West in general.
Yes,
so
indeed.
This is the situation as it is right now, as it is presented, as the Prime Minister of Italy has said it even in her inaugurational speech.
Yes, indeed. Ambassador Medhat Miligy, former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you so much, sir, for your very precious input. And moving to Egypt, who's receiving the aid carrying 162.5 tons of humanitarian aid for Gaza. El Arish International Airport in Egypt, northern Sinai, has received 8 planes carrying a combined 162.5 tons of humanitarian and relief aid destinated for the Gaza Strip. These planes organized from various Arab countries and organizations.
Arish Airport in Egypt's North Sinai has received 8 planes carrying combined 162.5 tons of humanitarian and relief aid destined for the Gaza Strip. These planes originated from various Arab countries and organizations. According to a source in North Sinai, one of the planes arrived from Qatar, operated by the Qatar Red Crescent Society, and was loaded with approximately 29.5 tons of food. Additionally, 2 planes arrived from Jordan belonging to the Jordan Hashemite Charity Organization, carrying medications, medical equipment, and food amounting to around 23 tons. Furthermore, 5 planes from the United Arab Emirates affiliated with the United Arab Emirates Red Crescent Society and the World Health Organization (WHO) brought food, medical supplies, and 32 barrels of fuel, totaling approximately 110 tons. The source stated that the cargo from these planes was loaded and transported on trucks to the logistics warehouses of the Egyptian Red Crescent in the city of El Arish. From there, it will be prepared for entry into the Gaza Strip through the Rafah land crossing. Egypt has received a total of 528 aircraft and 34 ships carrying humanitarian aid from dozens of countries and organizations until January 19th, as reported by the ERC. In total, 111,490 tons of aid have been delivered to Gaza through 7,179 trucks.
Well, with that, our dear viewers, we come to the end of this edition of our program Africa Today, and we leave you with this report where the United States welcomed Wednesday the conclusion of the record trade agreement with the Africans this year, totaling $14.2 billion.
The United States welcomed the conclusion of record trade agreements with Africa this year, totaling $14.2 billion in the context of the struggle for influence with China on the continent. The coordinator of the Prosper Africa Trade Initiative launched by the United States, British Robinson, said that nearly 550 new trade and investment agreements have been signed, representing a 67% increase compared to 2022 in terms of number and value. Judd Devermont, head of the Sub-Saharan Africa at the White House, said that we have had a record year for U.S.-Africa relations. Washington committed in December to investing $55 billion over 3 years in Africa. This strategy aims in particular to counter the growing presence of China, which has notably made inroads in infrastructure construction, investments, and loans. Devermont added that the United States has already achieved more than 40% of these commitments. By the end of the second year, they plan to exceed at least 70% of their goals.